the effect of law, how the law itself generates black violence as well. You got to examine that, you know. Black people have this sacred thing about law. You know, we think law is going to protect us. That's against the law. We got the civil rights laws and the equal opportunity. You're out of your mind if you think these laws are going to protect your interests. You're crazy. I just have to tell you that. Laws don't protect anybody. They're just words written on paper. And they're only as strong as the people who enforce them. And once the people who enforce them stop enforcing them, you can forget it. And you have this knowledge in your own history. You used to vote back in the, 1870s and so forth. And what happened when the people decided, in order for Rutherford Hayes and other people to get into office, they were going to give you back to the white folk down south and let them have you? The vote disappeared. Other things disappeared. Which should tell us right away here that there is no security in white folks' laws. You got to have real power to protect yourself and your interests, you see. And we don't, and you must understand laws. What are laws? Laws are rules imposed by one group against another in their interest as a group. There's nothing sacred about it. Those who have power and the ability to impose their power on others will make rules and impose their rules. Call them laws. Try to make you think they're sacred and all that kind of stuff. You see, so that they can appear to be legitimate in their domination. But in the end, when their interests change, they will change the laws. Or forget about the laws, you see. But to a great extent, it's the very laws that generate criminality. Quick example. For centuries, the peasants in Europe had the right to collect wood and stuff from their lords, from the land. They had what we call common property. So during the winter, when the crops were laid by and so forth, they could hunt, they could, later on in the summer or something, they could fish, they could find their firewood, they could graze their cattle and all of this in the common land. This went on for centuries until it was a virtual right, until at some point wool became a very lucrative crop. And those people in control of the society and who had power decided then that they wanted to raise sheep so that they could sell the wool and make a whole lot of money. They threw the people right out into the streets. Right out. And enclosed the land. And suddenly all the rights they had were now denied. And if they tried to exercise the same right that they exercised just the day before, they could be labeled what? Criminal. Was it because they had a criminal personality? Because they had criminal genes? No, it was because of what? The law had changed. And it says, this behavior was all right yesterday, but today it's what? Criminal behavior. So this is why you got to be careful when people start looking for the criminal personality, and all that. You got to look at the law first. What is the law? How does the law? The law defines crime. They were made to be beggars. And you know what? Those people then made a law against begging. If you're a beggar, you're a criminal. That's against the law to beg. Okay, now you throw me into the street, and now you make it against the law for me to beg. And now I guess we'll talk about what kind of personality do beggars have? What kind of genes? I guess their genes were different. You see, not only did they pass a law against begging, they passed a law against people giving them charity. Yes, it was illegal to even give them things, I'm telling you. In fact, they had to get a license to beg. So you could be arrested for begging without a license. Okay. That's law. Law. Not personality change, not genes, but what? One group deciding that it is in its interest to make law. And in making that law, creating what? A criminal class. And creating criminal and so forth. And I tell you, one of the laws, and I know some of you are going to have a tough time with this, one of the major reasons why we have crime in this black community today is the law against drugs. Prohibition. The prohibition against drugs. Yes. I know it's a hard pill for you to swallow, but that's the way it is. What can I tell you? Let's go back to the prohibition against liquor, alcohol. What happens once the law is passed? Liquor becomes expensive, right? It's prohibited. Now it's worth money to do what? To smuggle it. So you begin to get what? Gangs of smugglers of what? Of whiskey. Because what? The law created what? The value for it, made a market for it, and there was a group of people now that fed the need for people to drink. And suddenly now we had gangsters where we didn't have them before. Because of what? Law. Suddenly then people started shooting each other to gain control over the liquor territory. So they try to tell you drive-by shooting started in the 80s, didn't it? No, drive-by shooting started with Capone and the rest of those boobs. They were shooting. Valentine's Massacre. Okay? People dressed up with stick pins and big cars. Come on. You gotta be awake to what's going on here. Because what? Prohibition, the law structured itself, generated a type of criminality that did not exist before. Oh, you think these kids are interested in Tech 9 and Uzis? You ever heard of the Tommy gun? So the interest in what? Automatic weaponry and firing automatic weaponry did not start with black folk. It started during the what? Prohibition. It was a weapon used for prohibition. In other words, in the violence that we see, when you look, and here you do, you sit down and you look at the Untouchables every night, and you don't learn a single lesson from it, do you? Right. It's sitting right before your face. Drive-by shooting, automatic weapons, murder, death, killing, terrorism, the whole thing is right there. But the system makes you want to believe that this started with crack and crack cocaine, and this comes out of the criminal personality of black young men. You understand? It's right there before your face. It came out of the law and the structure of the law and the structure of the justice system. You see? And they fight over territory, and they fight over the earnings that come from it. And then, like any people who are in a war, they choose the best weapon. This is what's going on. You understand me what I'm saying? So you got to look at the law, you got to look at the nature of the law, and how this law and the construction of this country itself creates this situation. And you'll also recognize, despite all of the fights that Elliot Ness went through, he didn't win it. Didn't win it. Didn't win it, did he? And what had to happen ultimately? They had to repeal the law. With the repealing of the law, certain types of what? Criminality and violence went away. Now, we have every choice. I'm not advocating necessarily the legalization of drugs, but you got to think. And main thing I do want to do is just kind of crack your mind open a little bit before you're just too quick with the moral condemnations and the psychological condemnations. I can say that as a psychologist, you see, and all of this other stuff, that you got to look in a broader situation than we're looking here. You see, so you got to look at how the economic structure of America contributes to the disorganization and destruction of the black community. You got to look at how the criminal justice system itself contributes to this. You got to look at how the whole global economy is operating, how immigration also is having a major impact, and other things if you're really concerned